Hello, Heatseekers. It's the Heat Sheet. Hello, Heatseekers, and welcome to quite possibly the biggest edition of the Heat Sheet we have had so far. Not just because we've got a four-man booth this evening, but because of everything that we are going to try and cram in to this week's edition of the podcast. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last wee while, you will know it is WrestleMania XL this weekend, and that is why we have tried to make this the Xest of the List Heat Sheet podcast so far. As ever, I am editor-in-chief of the pod, Chris Jack, and tonight I am joined by three of my journalistic jabronis as we look to fill our fictional dirt sheet with the best of the week's wrestling news. But we're going to do it slightly differently this week. So Steve, Lewis and Billy, you are going to be giving us your future headlines for what we think are going to be the headlines next week with the fallout of WrestleMania for the front page and back page. We're going to discuss gossip, as we always do, for our page 3 section. And then we are all kind of in agreement what our TV page is going to be this week. And slap bang in the middle of the podcast, the meat in our pod sandwich is an interview with Ayrshire's own WWE superstar and world champion-elect Drew McIntyre on this week's podcast. So guys, I am really jazzed for this week's episode. How are you guys feeling? Lewis, I'll come to you first. You have managed to escape Philip Schofield's broom cupboards yet again for the second week running. How are you feeling ahead of WrestleMania?
Excited and potentially worried of how drunk I might get. Depending on how good or bad the show is, I think we've decided we're going to go and make ourselves feel a little bit better by surrounding ourselves by as many sweaty wrestling fans as possible in the walkabout in Glasgow.
Nice.
We're going to go to the watch along there. So going to apply a little bit of deodorant and think I'm the tribal chief in there. So I'm ready to go. Night 1, night 2, Raw, SmackDown. It's a big week. Excited.
I'm glad that you are acknowledging Lynx Africa in your quest to go and watch the wrestling this weekend.
Always.
Much like our good pal William Thompson was mentioning last week. Billy, what are your plans for WrestleMania this weekend?
Well, suddenly I have come down with the biggest bastard of a cold, so I'm hoping that that all clears up by Saturday, and I'll be downstairs being as quietly as possible, so my near 2-year-old doesn't wake up. So that's my bit of excitement. Hopefully, it goes better than when Drew won the Rumble, and I was quite elated at that point. But yeah, I'm just gonna hope I stay awake. So I've got Monster on its way, and hope that I don't look like total shit on Monday, which I inevitably will, because I've got like 2 podcast recordings on Sunday and Monday, because I'm an absolute fucking genius when I'm booking things. So I'm scared.
You're an absolute machine, that's what you are, Billy. I've been quite pleased with the amount of interviews I've been able to cram in for future episodes of the Heat Sheet over the last wee while, but you just seem to be constantly on calls, talking to the best of the best when it comes to Scottish and Irish wrestlers over the last wee while. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the fruits of your labours over the next wee while as well. And Steve, what about yourself? How are you gearing up for the biggest WrestleMania of all time?
I hope it's not the best week of year, mate. I think you got married a few weeks ago.
I was going to say.
No, the wrestling plan, not meaning in my life. Fuck off, you have put me right in it now.
every week, there's a jab about your wedding.
Fuck, I know. No, but I'm buzzing. I'm just watching it from home because I'm too old and antisocial now to go out and enjoy it in places like Walkabout. I'm just hoping I've got Monday off work, so I'm hoping A, I've got a hangover for the right reasons, i.e. a Celtic victory, and B, Seth Rollins has retained the World Heavyweight title. Sorry, Drew.
Oh, see that there is no place for sectarianism on this podcast. You know, we should all be getting firmly behind the man who's in the top left-hand corner of Billy's screen there.
I'm kidding on that. I mean, I want Drew. I want him celebrating a world title run, but not a Rangers victory. I'll
half and half. Incidentally, if you do want to hear Drew McIntyre's takes on this week's Old Firm game, there's a fairly decent interview up on TalkSport's website. If you just type into any search engine or Twitter, Drew McIntyre smash Celtic, you'll see various outlets aggregating the chat that I had with him the other week there. You'll be pleased to know as well that the football portion of that chat is not featured in our interview with him. But there are some quite good nuggets in there as well, so stick around for that, or even fast forward to it. You don't need to listen to our pish for this bit. I mean, if you just want to get to Drew, it'll probably be around the 40-minute mark, I would say, going by past stuff. But for us, before we get to that, we are going to get into the weeds of this week's wrestling news. And I think before we kind of do delve fully into filling the dirt sheet, I want to know, you guys, what are your all-time top favourite WrestleMania moments? Steve, we'll come to you first on that. What's the most iconic moment from the grandest stage of them all for you?
I mean, there's so many, but one that always sticks out is "I'm Sorry, I Love You." I think that was like
Is this the wedding again?
That's what Jennifer said to her dad. I'm sorry, but I do love him.
And then he super kicked your head right off.
I just think that was such a tender and beautiful moment. The only thing is, it's been diluted by Flair not retiring years later. But it's one of those tender, rare moments that happen in wrestling where if you've ever struggled to get your mates into wrestling, it's one of these things that you should show them to sum up what wrestling's about, the beautiful storytelling and the layers upon layers of characters and why we love these guys so much. So I've always felt that that one's always up there when I think of great WrestleMania moments. In fact, it's Shawn Michaels as well, the guy who was still called Mr. WrestleMania as well, and that was probably his highlight moment.
And what about yourself, Billy? What would you think is the greatest moment in WrestleMania history?
For years, it was Edge's spear to Mick Foley through the flaming table. Years before that, it was Edge's spear to Jeff Hardy at TLC. It's not Edge's spear that's number one in my pick. It happened 2 years ago. Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out for the KO show, knee braces on. I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it, because as soon as he came out with the knee braces on, you thought, oh, it's on. It's on. And it, for 10 minutes, it's probably my favourite match ever at WrestleMania, because you just got all that nostalgia wave in that moment. Austin looked good, seemed to fire up when he got suplexed on the outside, which doesn't seem possible. It's for years it was those previous moments, but I went back and watched it several times. Steve Austin coming back for the KO show and wrestling KO was just sublime, perfect.
It was just such a fun match as well, because everyone was kind of anticipating it. Because I think they had kind of said that Austin was coming back for WrestleMania on the same day that it was announced that Cody was re-signing with WWE. So it kind of got lost in the shuffle a wee bit in the dirt sheets and the podcasts and whatnot. And then when it did happen, you're right, Billy, it was one of those kind of seminal moments, especially for the guys like us that grew up in the Attitude Era.
I cried a wee bit.
Same.
I
was just, I couldn't believe it. First WrestleMania was WrestleMania 15, and Austin was in the main event against Rock, and then it's that many years later, and he's in the main event again, and I was just lumping in the throat. Couldn't believe it. Knackered because it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, but still loved it.
Yeah, and Lewis, what about yourself? Are you going to go with anything pre-2010 on this, or is it going to be you delving into the archives here?
I'll go into the archives a little bit with a couple of moments. I don't know how archivey it is, but WrestleMania was it 18? When Scott Hall took that stunner from Stone Cold. That sell is just something that lives in my mind forever. Like, if you're not a wrestling fan, you look at that and go, right, okay, why's he done that? But as a wrestling fan, the significance and everything, taking that second stunner was just brilliant. How old was I when that? Sorry to ruin your days again, guys. I think I was 5 when that happened.
A fetus. You'd have been a fetus.
Was it? I was maybe about 4 when that happened. And I remember watching it live, and it's something. I had a Goldberg, the sort of wrestling buddies.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting watching it with a Goldberg wrestling buddy and a DDP one, so must have been a WCW fan at some point, but for some reason. But yeah, I remember that. That's one of my first vivid wrestling memories. And recently, I say recently, 2012 or whatever it was, the end of an era match between Triple H and Undertaker. That near fall with the Sweet Chin Music and the pedigree. That whole match is just my favourite match ever. Alongside Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle from King of the Ring. For some reason, I've got a weird match taste. But that and the end of an era match were just something I'll always stick in my memory, and it's a match that I'll continue to watch pretty much every year before WrestleMania as well to get myself hyped. Whether Triple H or Undertaker are on the show or not, it's always one that gets me ready for the week and gets me going. So yeah, I'd say that as a moment, the stunner, as a match, that and anything Shelton Benjamin's done in a Money in the Bank match, throw that in as well.
See, the Money in the Bank ones, when Money in the Bank mattered, when Money in the Bank felt important, those would have been my picks. I think the first one that they had, because it was a novel concept and because it was Chris Jericho's idea, when Chris Jericho was a novel concept as well. I really enjoyed that. But it's always the weird things about WrestleMania that stick in my mind. Like, if I think back to last year, I don't necessarily think about Cody not finishing the story last year. I don't necessarily think about KO and Sammy winning the tag team titles. No, the first thing I think about is Shane McMahon. He's still got it. No, he doesn't. No, he does not. And then Snoop Dogg coming in, hitting a people's elbow, and Miz just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Just briefly, do you know what the most underrated WrestleMania moment of all time is?
Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville.
Well, that and X7, Linda McMahon slowly emerging from the seat during Vince versus Shane. The pop that got was enormous.
The catatonic state of Linda McMahon. And now it's just, look at the state of Linda McMahon supporting...
when you've been married to that guy for decades, that's going to do it to you.
It would do. Right, enough of that, enough of looking at the past. Let's look to the future and fill next week's front page, I suppose, or fill this week's front page with what we think will be next week's front page. But basically, what do we think are going to be the biggest stories coming out of WrestleMania? So we're going to do 2 years at this time for this one. So Billy and Lou, use our on front page duty. Lewis, I'll come to you first. What do you think is going to be the biggest news story coming out of Mania?
Am I going to be the devil on the shoulder here? Am I going to be the anti-hero here of the podcast? I'm going to say the headline's going to be Roman wins, lol. I just think that for some reason the returns and everything, we're hopefully going to get Stone Cold, we're hopefully going to get John Cena, we're hopefully going to get everything. They're going to take you to this massive high of when it's happening and then bring us straight back down to reality and have Roman retain. I don't know why I think that in my head. It's maybe an outside chance, but I just can't get past it, and I think it'd be brilliant if it happened as well. So, Roman wins, lol.
I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for a while, and that either Cody doesn't win or Cody gets cashed in on by Damian Priest. But I think this is the first time that we've come out and said that we're predicting that Roman's going to walk out still champion on there. What do you think, or why do you think that that's going to be the case?
I don't know. I think it's just. I think his stock's so high right now. I think. I know Cody's. He's got the face of a company sort of man, but I think recently, since the Rocks came back and everything, the Jimmy Fallon show, everything like that, bringing Roman into the spotlight. I think it's very recently that Roman Reigns has actually become the crossover man in terms of the wider entertainment zone. And I don't know whether he's obviously we've seen his documentary where he's continuously battling leukemia and everything, and he's obviously not at 100%, and a bit of time off could do him well. But the schedule he's on, he's not completely battering his body. I know some people might get a little bit pissed off, but I think there is still miles left in the tank for a Roman reign, and I think he's just getting into the level of stardom that can push WWE into this Netflix era of breaking into the mainstream. And I think having someone like Cody Rhodes, who is obviously, to a wrestling fan, is one of the biggest stars in the world, but to the entertainment side of things and the media side of things, I think another year or another 6 months, 9 months of Roman Reigns, from a business standpoint, would probably be my move. How we keep Cody hot after that is another story, but I think we keep the book open just now.
It is a very interesting way of looking at it, and I think a lot of that will depend on a lot of what happens in night 2 will depend on what happens in night 1 with the tag match. Because obviously, if Roman and The Rock win, then it's bloodline rules for night 2. Steve, what how do you think it's going to pan out? How do you think night 2 is going to end, and how night 1 is going to finish?
Cody's going to win. Cody's going to win. But I am not 100% against Roman retaining, because the dark side in me actually wants to see the world burning away. But Cody is winning. You can't have him lose the year before, set up the rematch a year later, and for him to lose again. It's not when the recurring theme is finished the story. Add to the fact that they've got Cody out fully out in the boat, doing all the media runs, doing the MMA with Hawani. I think he was on Good Morning America. I mean, that's the tippy top when it comes to media runs. When WWE's sending out somebody to Good Morning America, it's because they want that person to be the face of their company. So all signs are pointing towards Cody winning. It's a milestone mania. It's WrestleMania 40. The good guy's going to go over here. Also add to the fact that he's had his arse kicked stupendously by the final boss, The Rock. 2 Raws running. Rock said all this shit about his mum and his family, etc. The babyface needs to go over, so Cody is winning.
Billy, I'll come to you with this question. Do you think that there's been too much of... And I know that this might sound like a daft question. Do you think there's been too much Rock involved in this Cody v Roman saga? Do you think it's kind of took away from Roman's grandeur, the fact that the Rock has been so heavily involved in the build for this? Or do you think it's been done as well as they could have hoped?
It's one of those weird things. I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder what match Roman's got on Sunday, because he's not really being featured at all. He's kind of taking the back seat in this whole thing, and everyone else is doing the work for him. And I don't know if there's any particular reason for that, if it's part of his deal, whether they're wanting to just keep his proper moment for when he enters at WrestleMania. But yeah, it's if you watched Raw or anything for the first time recently, you would think that the main event was Cody versus Rock. And I mean, I'm still going to watch WrestleMania. I'm still there either way. But that's how it's been kind of feels like that's how it's been advertised. We've got Cody versus Rock, and then Rollins will be in one corner, and Paul Heyman will be in the other corner. I'm thinking Cody wins, but I think it's the most unpredictable WrestleMania main event probably ever in the 40 years that there's been a WrestleMania. And for that alone, it's going to be intriguing. And I think if Cody wins, it's going to bring back some fans as well, because people are fed up of Roman. Whether it's people that are going to be cancelled out by people leaving when Roman, if Cody wins and Roman's no longer featured at all, I don't know. But I'm going to stick with Cody. But yeah, it is weird. I think it's been built up more as The Rock versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania.
So, Lewis, I'll come back to you to finish off on this being your pick. In your timeline, in the Schofield Broom covered timeline, Roman retains. Does he immediately go into a feud with The Rock, or who do you see being the next one to step up to Roman before we eventually get what I'm assuming would be Rock v Roman at WrestleMania next year?
I think there's scope for another Seth match, considering the sort of the technicalities with how he beat him at the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago. I think there's scope for maybe Randy Orton or someone to have a shot. A couple of matches we've never seen before. Who knows? Maybe get a debuting superstar against them. Just some things we maybe haven't seen before. Get them in a couple of multi-man matches. Obviously stuff that maybe is unlikely to happen, but in this far-fetched world of Roman retaining, there are a few things to run with. And then maybe around SummerSlam, start the ball rolling with The Rock. You could paint a couple of seeds at WrestleMania if it was to happen. End credits of The Rock, sort of looking a bit pissed, looking a bit mischievous, that sort of end credit scene shit. But it's just the evil side of me saying Roman's going to win. I don't really think it's going to happen, but who knows? I think there is scope to get him a couple of matches until The Rock, but if they want to put it into The Rock, they've done long-term storytelling before, and I think they'd be able to paint another year-long movie that gets us going the same as what we did this year. How they managed to change everyone from the outrage of the Monday after WrestleMania of going, why is Cody not won? This is a joke, this is shit, to now where we're going, best WrestleMania of all time, here we go, Cody versus Roman again. There is no reason as to why they won't have us feeling this way next year, even if it is Cody again. Because I don't know now, but it was the exact same thing a year ago. Surely Roman can't win. Roman's not going to win. And as soon as Roman won, we just went, I can't believe that's happened. So I don't know with you guys. Are you guys more confident that Roman will lose this time, or were you fairly certain he was going to lose last year as well? That's the thing. So that's what makes it unpredictable. It's just we don't know what they're thinking. We don't know what year plan they've got. They've probably got the next 9 months of television written, and they're really good at switching it nowadays as well. If it's not working, they can change it. So I don't even know if they know who's going to win yet. They might have planned it for the last 2 years. They might have planned it 2 minutes before the match starts. But I'm here for it.
Well, if you take Cody at face value and what he said on the MMA Hour this week with Ariel Helwani, he didn't find out the result until the referee counted the 1, 2, 3 in the match, which I think is a bit of bullshit myself. But it does make the outcome last year does make the outcome this year so unpredictable. But you've got to, with being a wrestling fan and always picking a side between the good and the evil, you've got to be picking the good for this, in my opinion. But I wouldn't be disappointed if Roman won again. I just think
It's Infinity War versus Endgame. Last year we got Infinity War. This year we're getting Endgame.
If I had any reference of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I would agree with you on that, or disagree depending on what I knew. But yeah, Billy, we'll come to you. What would you say is going to be a rival headline coming out of WrestleMania?
Drew's homecoming, because of course he's against Seth Rollins night 2. I think we're going to see Seth Rollins lose to Drew, but we're going to get a Damian Priest cash in. And that means on June, whatever it is, I'm going 15th, whatever it is, Clash at the Castle in the Ovo Hydro, we're going to see Drew's homecoming triple threat singles match, him, Priest, maybe Rollins in there as well. And we're going to see Drew finally properly lift the title in front of a hometown crowd, and just scratch that loss to Grado way back when in the Hydro as well, when he lost the ICW World Title. But no, I think that's the one. Not because I'm obviously a big Scottish wrestling nerd anyway, but I think that's the one that has some question marks on it because of that Clash at the Castle announcement, and Damian Priest still having that briefcase. I'm very tired. So just imagine wheeling it down. Got a wee trunky. So I think I can guarantee that Rollins isn't walking out with the title, the World Heavyweight title. But it's just a case of, is it going to be Drew finally winning in front of fans, because he won his first title in front of nobody, he won his second world title in front of the Thunderdome, and this is his chance to actually win it in front of fans. And I think we're going to see some shenanigans. CM Punk's going to be there as well. That's going to be another proper shenanigan-filled match, and it's going to lead to Clash at the Castle. So we're going to see, hopefully, Drew come home as the hero that he is, and become world champion for weirdly the 4th time, which doesn't feel right considering at that point, if it all goes the way that I think it's going to go, he will only win it once in front of people. So weird.
So in Billy's Funkoverse timeline, do you have Drew beating Seth and then he gets cashed in on, or does Damien cash in at some point during the match and pin Rollins for it?
I'm in two minds about that. I think Drew's rebuilt up this whole momentum again after he lost to Rollins twice. So I think he should win at WrestleMania. But now you've brought that up, I think it would make Clash at the Castle even more exciting if he's finally going to chase it in front of a crowd and it's his home turf.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in two minds. I would love to see Drew just do it, no bother, fine. But yeah, throwing Priest in middle of the match to pin Rollins, to kind of give Rollins a taste of his own medicine when he did it at WrestleMania, 35? That would be, that'd be quite poetic. That'd be quite cool as well. So give me either. I don't care. Give me Drew as world champion, even if it's for a moment.
Yep. So, Steve, I'll come to you on this one. So, shortly after, in fact, it was during Raw last week, they announced that Clash at the Castle was going to be taking place, and then on Tuesday morning, they announced that it's going to be taking place at the Ovo Hydro in Glasgow. We discussed in our Heat Sheet group chat around about the time that we all felt it was a wee bit rushed, particularly with the timing of it being, pretty much the SmackDown being at the same time as Scotland v Germany in the opening game of the Euros. Do you think that all of this Clash at the Castle has been put in place as part of the negotiations for Drew to re-sign with WWE?
Yes, I think there's an element of that, and I'm definitely remember reading something around the time of the original Clash at the Castle that they were looking at Edinburgh first before going to Cardiff, because the reason why they chose that title is because they were confident they were going to have it in Edinburgh. What's Edinburgh famous for? Having a castle. But
too many English folk.
That, and apparently Scottish Rugby kiboshed it because there was a test match arranged or some shit. Or there was a Foo Fighters gig or something, but I don't know what it was. Something stopped it, it was too close and it couldn't be done, so they had to do Cardiff. So I think this was something to get Drew on board because they thought, shit, we can't lose him to AEW, so we need to make him cushy as fuck. What can we do? Well, beyond giving him another world title run, how about we give him a premium live event in Scotland, put him in the main event, he gets his big huge homecoming, because they know that the reason why Drew is a main event talent is because he's the UK act, isn't he? He is the ticket seller. We knew that from when they moved over to TNT, because they were getting Drew heavily pushed out over here when the TNT was BT Sports, it was, as it still was called back then. And so I think there's a strong possibility of that, and and we've got to thank him for it. I mean, because I know we do get regular house shows in Scotland, but we've never had a proper live event. We've had a Raw and a SmackDown, and that was it. So we're finally getting like a big pay-per-view where we're going to get all the big guns. We'll probably get Punk back by then. We'll get Becky. We'll get Rhea. So it's going to be brilliant.
Yep, it's going to be a great show. I think the only disappointment is that it is at the Hydro instead of being in the stadium. But again, there was a few tweets that I've seen, one in particular by Duncan Mackay from the Terrace Scottish Football podcast. He was saying that the Welsh government, or the Welsh Parliament, whatever it is they call it down there, they were heavily involved in funding WWE coming to Cardiff last year. Scotland can't even afford to. The Scottish government won't even put money into the I Right Festival this year, so there's no way that they were going to be putting any money into a massive undertaking. It's
also because they reserve a lot for the Fringe as well. So they've because getting funding in the arts in Scotland and the media is so hard, and it's because the Fringe has such a huge influence on it as well. I know as well they can't do Hampden because Pink is the weekend after. So I think that's another thing that kiboshed Hampden.
I'd love to see, and again, this isn't a reflection on Pink as a person or an artist. I'm just not a fan of her music. But I think it'd be very, very funny for Pink to be out in a wee high wire to the piece stuff that she does, and then she just gets claymored to fuck. With Drew's big boot. WWE's in town.
I better not let Jennifer hear this because she loves Pink.
I can see Lewis desperate to say something in response to that comment there, but I'll move on for that. But I will come to you, Lewis. What do you envisage Drew McIntyre World Heavyweight title reign looking like over the next couple of months, if and when he does take the title?
I hope that he keeps his sort of logical heel gimmick. He doesn't just go into one of the sort of heel champ runs that we see pretty much every time. If like a Damian Priest won it, what would happen? It would always be cheating to win, things like this. Hopefully that doesn't turn into one of those for Drew. Hopefully he stays. I know Drew's been a bit lucky with how he's got to this main event, but a sort of monster run, or just him keeping speaking logic, being a bit more smarky with it as well, just I'm better than you, I'm more logical, I see things clearer than everyone else does, that's why I'm the best, that's why I'm the champ. I just don't want any chicken shit heel stuff that they tend to delve into a little bit too often. But if he can hold it to Clash at the Castle, if he wins it back at Clash at the Castle, if he can hold it to next year's WrestleMania and have someone like Sami Zayn beat him, but just have good matches, good stories, and something that keeps us interested throughout, and finally gets a long run with the title in front of people, then that's all you can really hope for, to be honest.
Yep, no, I'm in agreement. I think that'd be deserved in terms of everything that he did for the company during the pandemic, keeping the wrestling alive, I suppose, as champion, and he deserves his flowers in front of fans, especially if he can get home to Scotland to to show off the belt as well. So I'm in agreement on that. We'll close this section out by returning to you, Billy. It was reported today that The Rock has been assisted in his comeback to WWE by three lads collectively known as Gallus. Do you think that there's any possibility that Joe, Mark, and Wolfie get a call up to be a faction around Drew at all?
No, I was when you were speaking there, I was thinking, how am I going to squeeze this in when I'm kind of in charge of the gossip bit? Because that is just such the most like you wouldn't think that would be the combo. Because I think Rock
No.
trained with Kurt Hawkins for one of his last appearances as well. I would love it. I would love it. I love Wolfgang. Wolfgang, I've met him a couple of times, seen him wrestle, and he's just like the nicest guy ever. I haven't had the pleasure to meet Joe and Mark face to face, but Wolfgang certainly, and his work at Iron Girders has been incredible as well from all involved. So to see him maybe step out with Drew while Priest walks out with Balor and Mysterio. I sounded weird. I thought it was Rey Mysterio for a second, but that's again very tired. But Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough, that would be amazing. Just to see that kind of faction warfare between the two, to have Drew getting back up and bringing the team down with him. That would be epic, and that would be a cool debut. And I suppose if Rock's on the board, not a bad thing to get in his good graces when you certainly can.
I mean that's Survivor Series War Games written all over it, isn't it? It's the Judgment Day against the new old firm. It'd be quite the thing, because
I think I've heard before. Did Wolfgang not train Rock's daughter as well?
It probably has. Like I think a lot of the NXT UK guys initially went over to the Performance Centre after the NXT UK folded on like coaching contracts, because know that Big Demo was on a coaching contract for a while, and I've seen like Sha Samuels has been over doing coaching with him, and a few other NXT UK ones. So it's very likely that he's been the Wolfie's been involved in that as well. But that's two excellent picks. I mean, those are the two kind of headline things that I thought you guys were going to talk about, and I find it very hard to pick between them. So I'm going to throw it to Steve here. Steve, which of the stories do you think should be making the front page this week, and what's your headline for it?
We'll be biased and go with the Drew headline, and the headline, it's not a very good one, but we'll go with this. McIntyre Mania leading to a hometown market moment for Champ McIntyre.
Cool, we'll go with that. And we will move to the back page. Now, this is where we're going to predict what the best match of the weekend is going to be. Now, not that we're discounting the main events has not been good matches, but there's some very, very tasty tie-ups across the 2 nights of WrestleMania coming up. So, Steve, we'll come to you first in this one. What do you think is going to grace our future back page?
I think Drew versus Seth should be a cracker. I'm really looking forward to Becky versus Rhea as well, because I'm right saying they've never had a one-on-one match to date, have they?
I'm no historian, but I don't remember any one-on-ones.
I think that'll be a cracker. But the one I'm looking most forward to in terms of like a purist wrestling match is is Gunther versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. Because I think it's going to be a classic babyface, like sort of plucky underdog babyface, who keeps getting up, facing off against just this monster heel, who's just going to keep brutalising him with move after move after move. But Sammy's going to keep getting up. I think the story that's going to be told in it is brilliant, and the crowd all throughout it is just going to be hooked every second because they're going to be fully behind Sammy. He is one of the darlings of the crowd. He's he's loved by everyone, both indie type fans and traditional sports entertainment WWE marks and young and old. He's just a classic babyface hero, and I think there's just going to be so many moments where just when you think Gunther's finally put him away with a powerbomb or a splash, Sammy's going to kick out, and the pop that's going to get is going to be brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to that one most.
I think it's good. It's probably the biggest risk of being a show stealer. I think just purely because of Gunther being involved in arguably the best match of last year's Mania, Sammy being on that trajectory from going from the Johnny Knoxville match 2 years ago, which was great fun, to everything that he did with the Bloodline leading up to the tag team title win last year. And now he's got a chance to take on someone, and again, stealing from, not just stealing from The Rock, but stealing from other wrestlers that have used the term last wee while. Gunther is a proper final boss type wrestler, and for Sammy to be the underdog, even on this week's Raw, when you saw him getting blown up by Chad Gable, and then at the end of Sammy's match, Gunther coming out after emptying Gable, and Gunther flattening him, Sammy refusing to lie down, refusing to stay down until Gunther smashed him with the belt. All signs are pointing to, for me anyway, all signs are pointing to Sammy taking that belt off Gunther. But I think it's going to be a case of Gunther losing upwards. Lewis, would you agree? Do you think it's time for Gunther to drop the IC belt to go after the top tier championships?
I think there is definitely a case for Sami Zayn to win this. He's lost the last couple of big matches he's been in, obviously discounting tag matches and things like that. The biggest singles matches he's been in, he's tend to be the plucky underdog who nearly wins. But if he was to win, I think he could go on a half decent run. And like you're saying, it's only upwards from Gunther here if he loses. It's never going to be what do we do with him now. It's the clearest case of losing to go to bigger heights. And if option C was a thing, or option B, option C, what is it, in TNA, with that X Division title to get a world title shot, I think this would be the perfect scenario for Gunther. Have him get beat, or even if he vacates it and goes on to higher things, it's needed and he's ready more than ever. So I think that having Sami Zayn win would be a good WrestleMania moment. I know it maybe doesn't paint it in favour of your Toronto trip for Money in the Bank, but I think that if there's ever a moment to take it off him, it could be now. But I still think Gunther's going to win. I think he's got more in the tank with that, but I think there is more impact to him just coming out and saying, "I've beat everyone. There's no one left. I want that title. So give me a shot at the world title, and I'll give you this belt." Something like that. But if Sammy wins, I'll be equally as happy. So whatever happens, I'll be there for.
Yeah, I think this is behind Cody finishing the story. I think this is the biggest opportunity for a fan service win by having Sammy win it. Steve, in terms of if Sammy does go on to win it, do you see him being a fighting IC champion and having weekly challengers? Like the Cena Open Challenge kind of thing that he did with the US title a few years ago. Do you see Sammy being that kind of champion, or do you think that once he gets it, he'll want to hang on to it as much as possible?
No, I think he would very much go with the workhorse mentality of wanting to defend every week. In fact, did he not make his main roster debut during that? US title open challenge
Yeah.
with Cena. Aye,
Aye,
so
he buggered his shoulders and his entrance.
that's right. Aye, so there could be a full circle effect to that, and given post WrestleMania we get a lot of debuts, I could see that leading to guys like your Carmelo Hayes and your Trick Williamses, your Creed brothers all getting their big main roster bows through a Sami Zayn Open Challenge. Could also mirror what they're doing in AEW with the Cope Open, with
Yeah.
Adam Copeland as well.
No, that's grand. I think that's a strong case put forward for Sammy against Gunther being match of WrestleMania. Billy, do you have another option for this to consider?
I do, and before we go for it, I'm sorry guys, but Chad Gable's thrown in the towel for Sami Zayn and turned heel on Raw. There you go. Right, so
that
for
would
the
have
match
been-
itself, I'm
You've
going
stole my headline there, Billy.
to throw the underrated one in there. The last few years, the tag matches have been insane. They've almost stolen the show. The triple threat with the Street Profits and Alpha Academy and Orton and Redacted was phenomenal. We've seen the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I'm putting my stock into the ladder match. I think because it's been kind of maybe slowly built just under the radar, I think it's going to steal the show, and we're going to see some absolute carnage as well. The interesting thing is, if Waller and Theory are out because they're going to get battered by Joey Swole, who's going to be that last team? And you know, the fantasy booker in me would love it to be the Motor City Machine Guns, because
Yeah.
they're no longer their contracts have ended with TNA, and I think that would just be again for the little child in me that has seen the Motor City Machine Guns with TNA, and that's a team that really I fell in love with TNA. Seeing would be incredible. It'll probably be a different team if it is going to be a team. Dudley Boys seem to have been bandied about somewhere, which in a ladder match, if it was a tables match, maybe, but not a ladder match, because Devon's scared of heights.
The one surprise I'm thinking of is Matt Hardy and somebody, because it won't be Jeff, because Jeff's still in contact, but
be so
Matt
sad to
Hardy and the
watch.
Hurricane. It would, but again, there'd be a kind of a sadistic kind of view watching an old and not really that good anymore Matt Hardy getting lobbed through ladders by the new generation that he inspired.
Yeah,
Or would
but
that maybe be a half decent opportunity to, if you've watched the Bray Wyatt documentary and you've seen that Uncle Howdy thing, as Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy were together at WrestleMania 8 years ago or something, why not throw Uncle Howdy in with Matt Hardy and just have a holy fuck moment? You know, as far fetched as it seems, you never know. Get Bo Dallas back on the screen.
Justice for Shelton Benjamin, him and Charlie Horse reuniting. Finally getting the WrestleMania
that
moment.
seems as random as Shane McMahon having to come back and tearing his ACL and then Snoop Dogg doing a people's elbow. That just sounds impossible. Never happen.
But yeah, I think the intrigue of that ladder match, not just because there is that element of surprise, the whole Waller and Theory thing's a bit odd to me, because they've clearly been pushing them as like the biggest assholes on SmackDown over the last wee while. But then you've got teams like Pretty Deadly, who have been getting a good push on SmackDown as well, not being involved in the final match there. So it's quite it's quite intriguing. I'm quite intrigued to see how that is. And as I was saying earlier on, I miss Money in the Bank being a thing at WrestleMania. So a ladder match is always welcomed. Even the Intercontinental ladder match that Zack Ryder won, was that 32?
Yeah, I think that was the last one. Know what I mean?
So it's I love a ladder match.
No, 33.
Was it 33?
The Hardy's return was the last one.
Aye. I don't know. I'm no historian when it comes to those type of things. But yeah, whatever one Zack Ryder won the IC belt at and then lost it the next night. It's one of my favourite ladder matches from there. So I'm quite looking forward to how this tag team one's going to pull it. In fact, has there been a tag team ladder match since it was the Hardys comeback one? Was that a ladder match? Was that just
That was a ladder match,
a
aye.
melee? Aye.
Yeah, it was. And
Cool.
the other interesting thing is it's been pointed out by Michael Cole that the match will continue until both sets of titles are down. So I think we're pretty much guaranteed that the titles are splitting at WrestleMania.
Thank fuck for that.
So we're going to get 2 sets of champions coming out of that then, which is quite interesting. I suppose with as many teams in it in the match, then splitting that off and doing what they do with it should be quite interesting to see how each brand develops their tag division. Have they announced a women's tag match for WrestleMania yet?
No, it's the Damage Control are facing Bianca, Naomi, and Cargill. So
Jade.
they'll be quite, I'd say, thank God the women's titles aren't just being thrown in a random match, because it can be good to see them being defended, you know. However, it can be a sad sight by throwing just as many random teams together and having them try and value the belt as much as possible. But having them in a 6-women tag and having the belt still in the show and the champion still in the show in a more high-profile match than they would have, I think, is the better move this year, and try and build them up over the next year or whatever they want to do with them.
Yeah, I mean that match is obviously going to be a showcase for Jade Cargill more than anything. You're going to get some sort of amazing feat of strength for Bianca Belair in it, because she is Mrs. WrestleMania just now.
I can already see the spot right now. It's Jade and Bianca. They've both basically got Kyrie and Io Sky both up in the press slam positions. Like, we're going to hold them there for a full minute.
Aye, there's going to be something like that. So the tag teams are definitely going to have a good showcase in that ladder match that you mentioned, Billy. Is a good shout for being the show stealer. Lewis, you get to pick this time. You get to pick which of the ones gets to make the back page here and give us your best headline for it.
I like the thought of Sami Zayn winning the belt. However, I just think that this Gable stuff is just he's too involved not to get involved, you know. So I think without taking anything too much from Billy's suggestion here, I'll headline it. Gable creates more big match pain for Zayn.
Big match pain for Zayn. I like it. I like the rhyming there. So yeah, that's us filled our future front pages and back pages. Now, I forgot to announce at the start of the show, we are now being aggregated by the Johners Podcast Network, who Billy's podcast, Scottish Wrestling Network. They send his stuff out as well. So you'll see somewhere around about here, if you're watching on YouTube, that there is a wee Johners logo. And yeah, for all sorts of different wrestling podcasts from across the UK and beyond, get following him on X, on Twitter, and all his socials. Because in case you get bored of listening to us four jabronis, you can always find some other content through Johners. And as a way of announcing our arrival on the Johners Network, I don't think we could be doing anything bigger than having an interview with the one and only Drew McIntyre. So for the next 8 or so minutes, I enjoy my chat with the Scottish psychopath, the captain of the Claymore, and who we believe is going to be the World Heavyweight WWE Champion at some point around the time of Clash at the Castle. It's Drew McIntyre. Hi Drew, how are you?
Oh, thank you for having me, buddy. I am great. I just flew from Nashville to Chicago, got to my hotel room, day of Monday Night Raw, and getting to chat with yourself. So buzzing. Good
stuff. Living the dream. Living the absolute dream. I'm going to put you on the spot, first of all, Drew. What would be your top 5 WrestleMania moments of all time? They can be your own ones, they can be historic, whatever your top 5 would be.
Oh, well, I'm on the spot. So as of this day, this moment, put on the spot, these are the top 5, which may change in 1 hour. But in no particular order, me winning the world title in the main event of WrestleMania, my first ever world title, main event. Pretty cool. That was the dream in that when I was a kid. Um, Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13. I was a big Bret fan. He was my favorite wrestler. And that particular match is just what our industry is all about from a physical perspective, from a storytelling perspective, from an emotional connection with the audience perspective. It's just pretty much a perfect match. Speaking of perfect matches, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, their first ever match. I want to say was it WrestleMania 25. Someone might correct me on that, but I'm pretty good with recalling details of our industry. But Taker Mike was the first one. Again, pretty much the perfect match. Two guys that had amazing careers, spanning over decades, and just the perfect story going in, the perfect guys, and the emotional investment from the crowd was off the charts. And again, most of these involve emotional investment because that's really what our business is all about. It's not about the moves in the ring. A bunch of guys can do a bunch of moves, but who really connects with the audience? And The Rock versus Hulk Hogan was another one. WrestleMania, again, I want to say 18. Someone might correct me. But in Toronto, that match was exactly what it's all about. If you turn off the volume, the match was crap from an in-ring perspective, but that's not what it's about in our industry. If you can have the great match and the audience participation, that's truly perfection.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's, you know, you can have anybody, whether they're a wrestling fan or not a wrestling fan, watch that and just get caught up in all the pomp and circumstance of it. It's a really good one for showing people that, you know, I've maybe been jaded with wrestling or haven't watched it before to get them back in. It's a really good kind of gateway drug, I suppose.
What's exciting about it as well is going into the match, The Rock's supposed to be the good guy. Hogan's supposed to be the bad guy. But the crowd, as soon as they saw Hulk Hogan, just went right back to little Hulkamaniacs, and they were cheering Hulk Hogan, they were booing The Rock. So, like, the thing about our industry is no matter what the plan is, whatever you think you're doing out there, if you're really good at what you do, you listen to the crowd and give them what they want. And those guys switched what they were planning to do in the ring, took an entirely different direction because of about 80,000 people telling them this is what we want. So they're such professionals in front of the world on live television. On a giant show like WrestleMania, they were able to adapt on the fly and give the world a phenomenal match that makes my top 5 today. And I don't know if that's 5, but that's certainly.
I think that was 4. I think that we got up to 4 there.
All right, let's get another one. How about Shawn Michaels versus Ramon, WrestleMania 10, the first ladder match in WWE? That was amazing.
Yeah, make my list as well. Make my list, but that's a great top 5 to have. And obviously, with WrestleMania XL just around the corner, you'll be looking to make another moment. How are you preparing for arguably the biggest WrestleMania of all time at the moment? And how does that differ from your sort of your regular PLE preparations?
Nothing changes. I train the exact same way as I've always trained. I've got the same mindset I've always had, except, you know, watch the risks because you can't get hurt right now. But we're 52 weeks a year, no reruns, no off seasons. Some of the lads shred up for Mania and like get the crazy 6-packs and stuff going. And I always tell them, you do know as soon as you have this match and then you lose that 6-pack, it's impossible to maintain it with our schedule all year round. Everyone's going to say he's out of shape now. So the key, as I found over 20 years of wrestling, is find, you know, what works for you, what looks good for you, what feels good for you. And I stay consistently about 19 stone all year round and look like a bloody beast.
And how much of how hard is it to maintain that? I know you said that, you know, gearing up and being on the road, it's hard to stay with the perfect 6-pack, the perfect shape. But how physically demanding do you find it when you are travelling week to week across the States and whatever to keep at that 19 stone level?
I mean, it's not easy, especially when you've been doing it as long as I've been doing it full time. Over 20 years and almost 17 years in America with the kind of WWE schedule. But you just got to get it in. You got to work around what's hurting you. The difference between being hurt and being injured, as every athlete knows. You know, you can work around being hurt. You can't work around being injured. So every week comes with different challenges. Okay, I got to go easy on this body part this week. I got to watch this week. I got to make sure I see the massage this week. I got to see, you know, the dry needling guy this week, which hurts like crazy. Take acupuncture needles, stick them in you, wiggle them around, electrify them, which feels just bloody lovely. Got to get in the cold tub every day you're home, which is freezing, but you got to do whatever it takes to keep the body going, keep the training in check. And when it comes to the diet, I just eat everything and anything. I don't have a particular diet. People would be disgusted if they heard what I ate and I'm able to maintain the shape I'm in because of my high metabolism.
Awesome. And do you have any sort of, maybe not so much week to week, but do you have any WrestleMania rituals that you would go through before going through the curtain on these massive shows?
No, it's the same as every big show. I pop my head through the curtain and go, bloody hell, there's a lot of people. Like it's never lost on me that I always wanted to do this. And as a kid, starting in Scotland and doing those first few shows that I did, there was like a farmer and a dog at the show, if we're lucky, and a couple of people's family members. And now, all those years later, to see anywhere from 89 to 100,000 people all in one building, all looking at you. It's not like you're part of a football team or a rugby team or something where you're part of the team or whatever. You're just walking out there in your underpants. That's most people's actual nightmare, is waking up like in their dream, like being in their underpants. And they wake up like, oh my God, that's the worst thing could happen. My life is mostly, God, I'm really uncomfortable being around people in my clothes. If only I was in my underpants, I'd be so much more comfortable.
Now, over the last wee while, you've been trying to make sure that Seth is fully focused on your match. You've not wanted him getting involved in all the bloodline stuff that's going to be happening on night one. But you yourself, you've been kind of poking the bear with CM Punk quite a lot as well. Are you fearful that the distractions that you think that Seth Rollins may have repercussions for yourself with the way you've been going on Punk the last wee while?
No, a big difference between the two. I injured Punk, took him out, made sure we didn't have that cancer in our locker room. And me making fun of him and talking about him a lot, I just do it because it's kind of funny. Makes me laugh, makes other people laugh. With Seth and the Bloodline stuff, that's directly affecting the attention on our title match. And he should be given his 100% attention to the World Heavyweight Championships, 100% attention to Monday Night Raw, the show that he's the champion of. And he's just a big hypocrite. Like he goes out in TV, acts like he's a big hero, but really, I've called him it before, call him it again. It's funnier. You say it with a Scottish accent, but he's a junkie, a spotlight junkie. He can't help himself. He sees The Rock over there on SmackDown. He's like, oh, The Rock casts a big spotlight. I want to get in on that. So he wedges himself into Cody Rhodes' story, gets involved with the Bloodline, knowing what happens in every single Bloodline match. They get involved in every match, spreading himself thin. At this point, I've told him, mate, I wanted you 100%. I wanted you not to spread yourself thin. You're addicted. You can't help yourself. Get out there chasing that spotlight. At this point, I just need you to show up for our match in night 2 of WrestleMania on the 7th of April. Whether you crawl to the ring, you're wheeled to the ring in a wheelchair, or I carry you to the ring. As long as you get in the ring, I'll kick you in the face, win that title, get my moment, and me and my fans will have a big party. Then I'll bring the title to Belfast on the 20th of April, and we'll have a mega party. And I've got a lot of family that live in Belfast, so we'll be having a major party.
Awesome. What would it mean to you to be coming back and traveling all over the UK holding the World Heavyweight title aloft as you go from arena to arena?
Everything. That was the dream when I was a kid, has been the champion of the world for WWE. It seemed like such a far off thing to a lot of people, including me, even though I was the one dreaming big. That's a very American thing, but it's such a worldwide thing now of such representation across our rosters from many different countries. And to get back to the UK as a first ever British champion, first ever Scottish champion, and be able to raise that title in the UK, in Ireland, around all the people that I grew up wrestling in front of and my friends and family, and finally show them the title and give it to my dad and say, did it, I finally did it. Thank you for, sacrificing, like my whole family sacrificing. I see my nephews from Lucky once a year. We've literally, and we say we, my family is also sacrificing, giving everything to this industry. And it'd be nice to finally have that reward to say, hey, sorry, I've been gone a lot, but we did it.
Well, when you do come to Belfast on the 20th of April, if you are out celebrating, there's a Guinness on me and the Cathedral Quarter for you there.
Quality. That's one of about 100.
So there you go. Smash Drew McIntyre on the heat sheet. Who would have thunk it? Thanks very much to Drew for doing that with us. The interview was mainly for TalkSport and my work, which is why we've not shown the full clip on the YouTube version here, because there's too much branding and I don't want to get my arse kicked for something that I possibly shouldn't have been sharing on here. But nonetheless, it's better to seek forgiveness than ask permission sometimes. But thank you very much to Joel Heatseekers for organising that as well. And hopefully this hasn't burned my bridge with you giving me access to WWE superstars in the future. Now, moving on from Drew, we are going to look at the gossip pages. We're going to look to fill page 3 on the heat sheet this week. So, Lewis, we'll come to you first. What are you posing as the biggest bit of gossip from the last week in wrestling?
I don't want to go too much CM Punky, you know. We always do, and we somehow bring him up. However, I just don't see where he fits into this WrestleMania. You know, there's gossip that he's going to be an announcer. There's gossip that he's going to get involved somehow. Is he going to be a referee? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? So, without putting too much of the gossip from myself, I just wanted to pose the question because I see this being a perfect opportunity for CM Punk to lay them both out and Damian Priest to come out, or playing the other side. Is he gonna stop Damian Priest, i.e. Fury on Theory? Is he gonna create his own moment somehow in the match? Is he even gonna ruin the match by both of them? I just want to get your opinions on Punk and where he fits in WrestleMania.
It's hard to think of him just sitting there and doing commentary. You feel he's gonna do something big. The thing is, like, do you want him to interfere? Because I kind of don't want him to. I would rather. I don't think it would be fair on Drew or Seth, for that matter, for their match to be spoiled a bit by having someone interfere with it. But like I said, it's impossible for him to imagine him just sitting there doing commentary. He's bound to get mixed up in something. Perhaps he could stop Priest from cashing in. I think that that's a possibility. Maybe they wait the following night in Raw for Priest to do the cash in. I think as well he's bound to cut a promo beforehand because Philly, he's got kind of affiliation with Philadelphia because it's it was ROH territory. He kind of matured in that area. He spent much of his indie days in Philly, so he's got an affiliation with them. And to the fact he was the first kind of big indie darling to make it into WWE, wasn't he? So he's bound to cut a promo beforehand. But I think you are right, Lewis. It's hard to imagine him just sitting there, just doing commentary on it. He's bound to get involved with something. Maybe he could do something after the match. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's a possibility. Maybe Drew wins, and then Punk gets in the ring and kind of squares up to him, and that maybe ruins Drew's moment a wee bit. You know, like Drew's trying to finally get the applause and the adulation of finally win a world title in front of a meaningful crowd, and then this prick comes in and steals the moment from him. You know, he doesn't let him enjoy it. So maybe that's something that they could run with.
What about yourself, Billy? How do you see Punk's involvement playing out this weekend?
Well, the whole story is Drew's taking Punk's moment, so it makes all the sense in the world that if Drew wins, that Punk's going to steal his moment and give him the GTS, and here comes bisexual Undertaker come down. That seems to be a meme now. The Priest will run down with his little briefcase, and I said it right this time, and he'll cash in. So I think, yeah, it's again, I don't want to say it's inevitable, but it feels like here's the more Marvel references that Chris won't get, but it feels inevitable that CM Punk's going to get involved and he's going to steal Drew's moment, and that just will maybe get a Punk versus McIntyre match in France for Backlash, and then we've got Clash at the Castle, which I've already booked, so we know what's going to happen there.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one. As Punk said a few weeks ago on his first promo back after his injury, you can't have WrestleMania in Philadelphia without Phil. And his box office,
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. That's it, as opposed to Flipadelphia, which I think would be a good way of. I think a Flipadelphia championship would be far better than the WWE Speed Championship, but that's for another time. But yeah, I reckon there's no way that Punk doesn't get involved physically somehow. I don't know how his bionic arm is holding up, but even if it's smashing somebody with the brace, or if his arm is generally okay, his Macho Man elbow drop with that to lay out Drew, and then Damien Priest can come down and do the cash in. I think that would be a pretty good visual on that as well, because it's Drew getting hit with a weapon, which kind of protects him a wee bit and not getting the belt. But yeah, that's a good bit of gossip for us to surmise on, Lewis. So we'll take that one, and who's up next for the goss? Is it back to you, Billy?
I think it's Steve.
Was it Steve? Steve, what is your juiciest bit of gossip from last week in wrestling?
It's not nearly as juicy, to be honest. It's we've not talked much about AEW in the podcast this week, but there was announced a few releases from the company. It's guys you've barely heard of, to be honest. It's guys that were mainly involved in ROH and maybe a match or two on Rampage or Collision. It's guys that were barely getting any time in Dynamite or anything. The only kind of two familiar names are Stu Grayson, who becomes the first ever two-time releasee in AEW, which I'm gutted about because I really liked him, and he had a really good storyline going on where Dark Order were trying to get him back in, but he'd been hooked up with another faction, but that's now away. The other one is Dasha Gonzalez. She was sometimes the ring announcer, sometimes an interviewee. I'm quite surprised by that, because does that mean they're just going to use Justin Roberts from now on, or have they hired somebody new?
I've not noticed any other announcers on Collision or Rampage or anything like that, unless they're breeding someone in. But I mean, the majority of those releases were guys that weren't anywhere near the end of their contracts. They were just being cut for. I can't remember the reason that it was given. It was like budgetary and just staffing.
Yeah,
I think was the thing.
I think it's to clear the field as well, because they've spent a fuck ton of money getting Okada and Mercedes in. I mean, Okada's contract, I couldn't. If rumours are to be true, it's a 5-year contract worth $13 million. That's fucking insane. And Mercedes is set to have the biggest contract ever awarded to a female wrestler. So they need. I mean, even someone with as deeper pockets as Tony Khan needs to free up money somehow in order to pay this. But
he's investing in Motherwell. He's buying Motherwell Football Club. Motherwell announced yesterday that an American, a US-based family are looking to buy shares in the club after a mad Taylor Swift baiting investment video the other week there.
Fuck off. That was a Only Fools joke, wasn't it? Surely.
No, they announced that. Well, they've not announced that it's going to be the Cans, but I think it'd be brilliant. Fuck Clash at the Castle. Get the fight at Fir Park going. That's what I
would
want.
love so much it turned out to be the McMahons.
Get one of those little fucking sweet boxes looking over the Clyde or whatever it is, like they're trying to get Fulham. I'm sure the murky brown water will just be as nice as the Thames there.
Aye, be brilliant. But yeah, kind of back on track there. The AEW releases, it's as you said earlier on, it's not anyone that there's nobody really surprising, and it's a lot of guys that that haven't done much on AEW television. But I think the most interesting thing was that Anthony Henry of the Workhorsemen get released while recovering from a broken jaw, but he's been rehired today. Because I think there was quite a bit of backlash to Tony Khan sacking a guy while it was out. And
we do know it's a first rounder cut, so anticipate more. in the next few weeks, and I think there will be much bigger names. I think Miro's bound to be one. I think it's clear as day he wants out. I think there's also rumours that it's been announced that him and Lana are splitting up. I think he wants to maybe actually get out the business for a wee bit, clear his head. So
Yeah.
I can see that being a strong possibility.
We need to shut down the rumour as well that it's friend of the show Craig DL that's responsible for the split. Going by the WhatsApps when we were chatting about that, he told CJ to keep that quiet. So we can neither confirm nor deny that the heir to his own Craig DL has split up the power couple.
Fucking hell, okay. Never before has a man punched above his weight. So I think another few releases will be I can see some in the women's side. I think possibly Ruby Soho. She's just kind of disappeared a wee bit.
Oh, she's been involved in that Angelo Parker Bechtel test baiting storyline where
I thought that was
it's only important because a guy's involved. But it's a weird one. Like, obviously we don't want to see anybody lose their jobs, and I'm pretty sure they could speculate on a good few names that could get cut.
I do think it's needed in a way. Like you say, I don't want anybody, especially in today's economical climate, losing their job. But I think in a way it's needed. I think AEW needs to lighten his roster a wee bit. It needs to trim a bit of the fat. And I think also it might wake up some guys to, change things up a wee bit, waking up their ideas as well.
Well, I mean that's something that we're going to get onto with the TV pages when we look at that. But Billy, which of the gossip stories there do you think deserves to make the page 3 of this week's heat sheet?
I've worked hard on this. I mean, I've been quiet during AEW stuff because gone, and then the football chat was just even further away. But I'm going to go with Lewis with the headline: "Will WrestleMania get punked?"
Nice, I like that. I do like that. I think that's my favourite headline of the night so far. Lewis, do you need to shoot off now? I know that you'd said that you could only be with us for a bit of the pod.
That's me. That's bedtime for me. Obviously, I'm a young lad. I'm going to be tucked in a bed by the mother. So enjoy the TV pages and enjoy WrestleMania as well. And I'll catch you very soon.
Lewis, you had mentioned earlier in the week that you're going to be looking out for NXT Stand and Deliver. So if you are feeling especially creative on Saturday, we may put out a wee soundbite from you with a wee review of the show if you're up for doing that.
I'll get something out. Yeah, looking forward to that. There's a lot of big matches on it. Obviously, they like to give a WrestleMania worthy NXT takeover on WrestleMania weekend as well. So I'm sure that the matches they've got on, and especially Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, will get a big shout out for that. So looking forward to that, and I'll give you a little review, predictions, or sort of my thoughts on what's going to happen or what has happened. So look out for that one.
Smashing, thank you. So once we get that all in the can, that'll go out as a wee amuse-bouche before you get to watching Mania. But we'll see you again, Lewis. Thank you very much for your contributions this evening.
You there?
Yeah. Right, as Lewis delves back into Schofield's broom cupboard, we will go on to discussing the TV pages this week, and we've kind of came to an agreement that there's only really one thing that's wrestling related, but not necessarily wrestling, worth watching this week, and that is CM Punk's Scorched Earth chat with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour this week. So I watched it in 2 sittings on the way to and from work the other day there. Well, I say I watched, I listened to it. And yeah, it's quite a contradictory podcast, if you compare it to a lot of the stuff that he said in the Colt Cabana Art of Wrestling podcast, the infamous podcast that broke a friendship and led to many a fight, many a fine coming through. There's a lot of contradictory stuff in there in terms of where Punk's thoughts in the business lie. And I know that they always say, if you're the same person that you were 10 years ago, then you've not been living right. But when you compare both podcasts side by side, it seems like Punk's ethos on certain things has changed. Steve, I'll come to you first on this one. What did you think of some of the claims and accusations that Punk made in his chat with Tony Khan's least favourite wrestling journalist?
Yeah, the contradictory is the word, because yeah, you can put it down to Punk being a very different person 10 years ago, but when the whole Colt Cabana thing, back then it was all about health and well-being and how he had the enthusiasm for wrestling stamped out of him. Well, now if it's true, then he's done a complete 180, because now he's very much about making money and doing business, which is exactly what WWE is about. So, so what changed was, did he just mature himself, or was his time in AEW so revolutionary to him that he went halfway through it? Holy shit! Triple H and Vince McMahon are right. It should all we're just a business at the end of the day. I don't disagree with much of what he said, right? And I believe there is some truth when he said, I got the impression a lot of those guys from the get-go did not want me there. I felt the welcoming I got from them was very cold, and he alludes it possibly being to the whole Cabana scenario and how close he was to those guys, but it's also because that's common in wrestling. When you're at the top of the card, the last thing you like hearing is another main event talent being brought in because it's a threat to your spot. So that's time immemorial with wrestling. I doubt when Flair signed with WWF in 1991, Hogan and Savage were happy about it. They were probably marched straight to Vince McMahon's office and said, "You've done what?" So that's a possibility. I also just want to say, fuck Harry Olawani. He's a shit-stirring bastard. He does it every week with UFC fighters. He says, "Oh, when I had this guy on the show, he said this about you," and he's doing it now with wrestlers. He's a fucking sneaky. He did it with Rhea and Becky. Did you know that?
I've listened to that.
I'm not talking about stuff that's on screen. It's like shit off screen, like bringing up the whole stink face thing. He's a shit-stirring bastard for that, and he's done it today with Cody, So fuck him, he's a wee arsehole. I just had to get that off my chest. But yeah, there is a lot of contradictory stuff, but I will take Punk's word for it. I'm glad we've finally heard his side of the story. And he seems happy now, I'll give him that. He seemed very relaxed, that whole interview. Maybe he's finally found some peace, maybe being out of AEW. Finally, took the burden away. But yeah, it's very strange how he's gone from this sort of anti-authority kind of do you mean what's the word I'm looking for? Like people's champion type figure.
The voice of the voiceless.
Voice of the voiceless. Like his gimmick was back then, to now being the company boy. Not the company boy, but I know what you mean.
He's putting on, he's doing the media rounds, he's doing the stuff, because there was a part in it where Ariel Helwani was asking him, if he would consider going into like management or like into being a producer or an agent, that kind of thing. and it made me think of, you know, when he was speaking to Colt Cabana and saying about how Hunter was always saying, "Oh, I don't want to be a guy wearing a suit," you know. It was that kind of thing where he's considering that now, or it's something that's maybe a possibility for them, where, you know, 10 years ago it wasn't. I mean, we've said that it's quite contradictory, but the one thing that has remained is that he wants people to make money. Maybe it's in a different way to how he was 10 years ago, but that seems to be what's caused a lot of the grief. Billy, what did you think of what he gave away in terms of the whole Hangman situation, where he was saying that because Hangman went off script in the promo, he didn't trust him to work with them, and he gave up a $1 million gate. What were your thoughts on those kind of claims?
I think he's justified in the case of if you've, I think what we were saying, that they planned like the bullet points and what was going to be said and all that kind of stuff, and then Hangman went completely off script. I could see with someone that Punk is, who's been damaged by that before physically, like Ryback being an absolute donkey with stuff in the past and going and just ballsing up things. I could see why he'd be like, no, you've broken my trust here, so I don't trust you to keep me safe. And he's older, he's mellowed out over the years as well, so I can see why he would be like, no, I'm whatever, 40, whatever old, I'm here to make my money so I can have a comfortable life outside of wrestling and still maybe have all my joints working as well. So I absolutely understand his point with that. And there must be some truth to it. If Tony Khan was that rattled, he was sending Adam Copeland out to do a big rah-rah speech, which seems like the worst person to send out, seeing as he was WWE for so long.
You'd have thought that it would have been, you know, an Eddie Kingston that went out. Obviously, you're not going to send out any of the elite to do it, because that's just that's a no. But you'd send out, you know, a Darby Allin or an Eddie Kingston, or, you know, so one of the, I know that there's none of the pillars really about at the minute, but somebody that's AEW through and through for that.
Is sending now Adam Copeland not a good move? Because Adam Copeland is a WWE guy, and it is a sign that AEW is interested in actually making money. Do you know what I mean? Like, Copeland's a guy that, you know, he's making the point, I'm here because, or it is about fun, and we should be celebrating how hot wrestling is right now. But Copeland's got every right to say, I'm not stupid, okay? I'm not going to sign for a company. I'm certainly going to leave a $1 billion company and sign for another company that's not interested in making money, okay? I'm here because I want to help them make money, and I believe they want to make money. So it's sending him out not a good message in a way, or not a good sign in a way.
Nothing makes you sound lamer though than sending someone out to go, oh guys, wrestling's fun. It just sounds lame, and they're doing it in front of half-empty arenas, and like I say, Eddie Kingston probably would have been the perfect guy to do it. He's a bit more like, he's a bit more speaking to the people kind of thing, and I find Edge was probably not on purpose, but a bit condescending kind of thing, going, "Hi guys, wrestling's fun, guys." Like, fuck off. We'll like what we like here.
I think it came across a bit disingenuous in that a guy who has only been in AEW for a wee while is coming out and saying that. A guy that never experienced what it was like working with Punk in AEW. He came in after Punk was gone, so he's only seen what the locker room and what everything's like after that. He's probably, I'd say Copeland has probably been the biggest, I don't want to say loser, but the fact that when Punk was there, they were still getting, you know, almost full to full stadium, not stadiums, but arenas for their shows. Since Copeland's come in, there's been multiple pictures of him cutting promos to very few fans in attendance. And he's probably suffering as a result of that because he's not seeing what AEW was when it was at its absolute hottest. And
then help him get back to that stage. Like I don't disagree with you what you're saying. There is a disingenuousness of it. I actually wish AEW's response here was no response. You know what I mean? I've been hoping for a while that AEW matures a bit and decides to not acknowledge what WWE is doing at all. Just focus on its own product. I think they have tried to do a wee bit, but this week when that Punk interview came out, the very first thing I said after watching it is, I hope AEW don't respond to this at all. I hope that nobody comes out and says it's all bullshit, it's all lies, he caused it, etc., etc. But no, Matt Jackson had to do that wee stupid thing where he says, "Hey, scapegoat, love your work," in reference to Jack Perry. And I'm thinking, what you doing, man? You're the fucking EVP, and you've just made yourself like a total tit again. Stop it, man, please. Just focus on your own product. Fuck Punk, he's gone. The boogeyman's away. Build your own brand again.
And I think that's what I think Tony Khan's trying to do. I think that's what it was probably trying to come across in what Copeland was saying and what Dax Harwood was saying after the Collision taping as well. The motto for this new, recently rebranded AEW seems to be where the best wrestle. And that was another thing that Punk kind of said as well about, you know, what I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, what does it matter having 5-star matches when you're doing them in front of half a building? You know, that seems to be an issue. And what he was saying about guys turning up, only wanting to do a few promos, do 4 weeks worth of promos in one day and then go home for the rest of the month. That's something that Tony, if that is true, that's something that Tony needs to eradicate. That's something that the guys like Adam Copeland, the more tenured guys, Christian, etc., they should be putting a fire under everybody's arse to say, look, if you come to work, you come to work.
There was absolutely some harsh truths in what Punk was saying and stuff you've just said there, Chris. You're absolutely right. They are part of those harsh truths, and it's long been. It's been my long-held worry with AEW. Tony Khan is essentially the world's wealthiest wrestling mark. He's in. I've said this many times in the show before. Tony Khan knows how to book a wrestling show. He doesn't know how to produce a TV show. It's WCW in reverse. What was always said about Eric Bischoff back in the days. Eric Bischoff knows how to book TV. He doesn't know how to book wrestling. With AEW, it's the reverse.
Yep. I think the final thing to say in this one, Billy, do you think that there's any chance that in the next, I'll be generous here, 2 to 3 years, we get another CM Punk interview where he is absolutely shitting on the Fed?
I think once he gets back in the ring, that's when it'll properly get tested, whether where he is positioned in the card and all that kind of stuff. But we'll go, yeah, why not? Let's have another. Let's say 3 years down the line, we'll have another explosive interview. It won't be with Colt Cabana this time. It'll be with his new best pal, Ariel Helwani, and he'll blow the lid on everything because the NDA will run out, and he'll be able to just absolutely obliterate both, and then that's that. But I think at this point he's old enough to realize he needs to pick his battles. It's not worth it. It's making money at the end of the day, and that's what he needs to do. He's won the titles. He's done all that kind of stuff. He's got the accolades and the accomplishments. Now he just needs to maybe just get a cushy job at the Performance Center, get and tell people all these stories, and just live a happy life. Let's do that, Phil. Let's go live a happy life. Let's do that.
Let's that's a great way to end this week's podcast. So if you've not already had enough of wrestling for the last hour and 24 minutes plus however long the Drew McIntyre interview was, go and seek out the MMA hour with CM Punk from this week, and even a wee bit of the Cody Rhodes one as well. I caught a tiny wee bit of that earlier on today. Get some good chat with wrestlers and with the CM Punk stuff. There's a lot that we've not spoiled in the last couple of minutes on that, so it's definitely worth seeking out. That brings us to the end of the heat sheet. I can't remember what all the headlines were, so go back and listen if you want to hear them again.
Mine was pish anyway.
That's been a bit harsh on yourself. That's been a bit harsh. But thanks for listening to myself, Steve, Billy, and Lewis. Thanks for listening to Drew McIntyre. If that's the reason that you've came to this podcast, because you've seen Drew McIntyre on there and you wanted to hear what he had to say ahead of WrestleMania, then give us a follow, go back and listen or watch our old podcasts. Just look up the Heat Sheet podcast or the Heat Sheet Wrestling podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Give us a follow over on Instagram and on X at the Heat Sheet Pod, and I think it's at the Heat Sheet Podcast on Instagram. We just set that up the other day there. WrestleMania is this weekend. However, you are going to enjoy your wrestling. If you need to feel the heat, look out for the sheet. Thanks very much.